You know what? I do want to. All right.
Oh.
Welcome to Bonehead.
I'll be back.
No, he won't. It's just me and James
Let's
now.
practice our new theme song. Bonehead. Nothing but bonehead. It can be your head. This just went south.
All right. Are
We
we ready?
Poop jokes.
We ready?
We get poop jokes. We get poop jokes. We get sacks and sacks of poop jokes.
You get sex and sex. Shit.
Are you seriously looking at yourself in the...
I was checking my hair, yeah.
He spends a lot of time on his hair.
All right. So, I'm sorry. Some of us...
Joe the Narcissist Lewis.
Yes, the one thing I have, I checked on. All right. Are we ready?
I noticed he didn't check it inside his pants.
I said it was the one thing I had.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I didn't say I had my pecker. In fact, I'm pretty sure I don't have my pecker. Thanks for bringing it up, James. Pecker.
Great
The
movie.
best James Waters. James Waters.
Waters?
John Waters.
And no, it's not. Serial Mom.
Serial Mom is not my favorite, actually.
Yeah, you're a dick.
It does have Christina Ricci in it, though.
Are we ready?
I thought we were.
All right. Welcome to Bonehead. Why am I holding a House of Usher poster?
Because you don't want it to fall.
It's not a poster.
What did Courtney Joyner say it was? Because I said it was an insert, and he said it wasn't an insert.
Yeah,
it
I
was
can't
something
remember.
else.
But it's not a poster.
And we didn't record that because we were having a conversation before the episode, right?
But you're holding it so it doesn't fall. Because if you let it go, it'd fall. That's why you're holding it.
No,
Yeah,
it's
but you're
spring.
just trying to say the fall of what?
Oh, so it'd be the fall of the... I didn't actually intend that. But that
Oh,
would
wow.
Be, it would be the
Because he
fall
wouldn't
of the
shut
House
the
of
hell up
Usher.
about it. I thought he was being a smartass about the fall of the House of Usher.
No.
This is original, and it's signed by a guy named Roger Corman. I'm not exactly for sure who that is.
It's Old Man Corman's boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Who now himself is an old man. No offense meant, Roger.
but he's in his 90s. That's pretty old.
You're not Kirk Douglas old.
That's true. But anyway,
We hope you will live to be.
we have this House of Usher thing up here, and if the camera was pointed that way, or if you were watching this or listening to this, it doesn't make any difference if you're listening to this. I am holding my House of Usher poster. Original. Signed by Roger Corman. But who starred in this masterpiece?
It's not a poster.
Who starred in this masterpiece poster?
Well, according to it, it's now Vincent Price. Vincent Price
Vincent
was the
Price,
main
that's
star.
right. We are going to talk about Vincent Price this episode. Why?
Because Vincent Price...
And how did we just now get to Vincent Price?
I don't know. Vincent Price to me is... Okay, so in the great scheme of actors I love, modern
the great
day...
scheme, not the shitty scheme.
No,
this isn't an
there is
Ocean's.
one.
This
There
isn't
is one.
Ocean's 12. This is Ocean's
No,
11.
Yeah, we're doing the good.
Of schemes.
Of schemes, yes. But in that entire thing, Vincent Price is probably my favorite actor of all time. There's a couple different reasons for that. A, he played a lot of different roles. B,
All of them were the Witchfinder General.
no, not really. But B, he his voice. If you heard his voice, you're like, that's Vincent Price.
Yeah.
And C, most people think Vincent Price actor, but he did so much. And one of my favorite quotes by him is, if you limit your interest, you limit your life. I have that on my wall in my office, actually. I got a print from Vincent Price Enterprises or whatever.
They'll pick you up.
Oh my God. Can you imagine? Actually, there's a Simpson episode where they have Vincent Price. I thought you were dead. No, I just drive a bus now. And Marge gets on the bus. I don't know. It's
a good story. It's a good episode. You can tell it's a good episode. It's a James heavy episode. That's what makes it good.
Yep.
Anyway.
He's not Uncle Arthur.
Oh my God! If I could do a perfect Uncle Arthur impression, I thought really good. I would do entire episodes where I just did that voice.
No, but you can do Arthur Christmas for some reason. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Anyway, but he had that voice.
Some Arthur Christmas.
He had the voice, and the voice that carried through everything, and you just heard it. And that voice could sound wounded, it could sound hurt, but it could also literally scare the living daylights out of you. So I can talk about Vince Price for a long time because he really is.
But was he scary?
He could be.
I never thought of him ever as scary, even as a child.
Well, that's because you don't have a soul.
I don't think that's it. It
I'm
could be.
sure.
I don't want to... I mean, you have a good point.
Right.
I think there's several other things that limit me.
But, and actually, and again, going back to his quotes, he would actually agree with you that he never played anybody scary.
No, he played men, I'm stealing the other one, that
Yes.
were besieged by their destiny?
No, by fate.
By fate.
I have never played a villain. I play men besieged by
by
fate.
There's one role that I can tell you where he actually creeped me out a little bit, and that was his the Pit and the Pendulum.
Yeah, because he flips so dramatically.
Well, because he was the pendulum.
That's not true.
He did not play. Oh my God! Though I would have actually watched that
Boris
movie.
Pickett played the Pit.
I would have actually watched that movie if it's just Vincent Price making slow. I'm coming slowly for you.
Yeah,
I would watch that
I
today.
had a hooker say that to me once.
But no, it wasn't.
She never got there.
Yeah, he wasn't. He wasn't particularly, except for like the Pit and the Pendulum was the one that I specifically remember. He really creeped me out. But it was just his presence in any movie. If he was
He
there,
had a lot of screen presence.
his screen presence, he would pull you in.
He was. I mean, early on in his career, I would argue that he was the character actor.
Yeah.
That they put in stuff that we talked about character actors in another episode. But that you would just see and be like Tower of London, the original one, not the Corman remake. But Boris Karloff was the star, and he played just a duke, and he's a very cowardly duke. But when he's on screen.
Of Earl.
We can change
Did
your
you
Earl.
check your Earl?
Anyway, and so there's just this great chemistry there.
That
So,
was his first horror role.
But let's.
yeah, which is not really. It's a horror movie, but it's historical horror. It's about the Tower of London, where if you're a fan of British history, where kings and dukes were killing one another
Yeah.
to seize power,
Earl.
and that's what Tower of London was about.
Let's
But
let
let's-
the bald one speak.
But I was gonna say let's.
What I was saying,
Well, no, it's like before we get into his actual career, let's start at the beginning.
Yeah.
So Vincent Price was born May 27th, 1911, in
can I start at the prehistory? Because it's actually relatively, or I think it's interesting. You may not. So
well, let him
was
finish when he was
Yeah,
born.
so
Okay.
he was born in 1911 in St. Louis, Missouri, and he actually was born into a very successful company. His grandfather was actually the inventor of the first cream of tartar baking soda.
that's true.
Ooh.
And both him and his father founded the National Candy Company. I tried to find what candies they specifically made.
They
but
made-
He was born Vincent Leonard Price, Jr.
Jr.
His grandfather was Vincent Carter Price.
Right.
And so Vincent, the interesting story there was Vincent Carter Price was a Welshman. He was what was called a black Welshman. He had very dark, piercing black hair and eyes and all. But he had a baby face. And this is a true story. Matter of fact,
If he was a wrestler, he'd have been the good guy.
Yeah.
yeah. The story is in Vincent Price, A Daughter's Biography, Victoria Price. We're going to tag Victoria Price in this because a lot of what I'm going to talk about comes from this book. You should pick up this book.
And you should go see Victoria Price wherever. She travels quite a bit talking about her father.
And she also does a blog about positive living. And I seriously, I'm a pessimist by nature. I do read it occasionally.
Yeah.
I can't say I read every one, but check it out.
We recommend Victoria Price. Keep going.
But he talks about, so this starts with the grandfather. And he decided, he was a druggist. He ran a pharmacy.
Yeah.
And he decided to go back and become a doctor because, money. He became a doctor, and he had such a baby face, people honestly couldn't believe he was a doctor. So they wouldn't go see him. So he moved back in with his parents, with his wife and all of that stuff, because he had no other choice, and started doing chemistry experiments in the basement, and that's how he created baking powder.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
But yeah, baking and died a multimillionaire in the 1911 was his.
Yeah, and
son.
he also went
believe.
around. He managed to sell. He sold vanilla and lemon extracts that he made himself as well.
So he went from literally he did everything you're supposed to do. He got an education, went to medical school, did all that stuff, and people just thought he looked too young to be a doctor.
Right.
And so he ended up becoming a chemist, effectively using what he had learned at different places.
But,
and then you're right with his. So anyway.
Yeah, he founded the National Candy Company. They specialize specifically in jelly beans and jawbreakers.
Okay.
And what's interesting about that is that's actually how the family survived the Depression, because they did go from multimillionaires, his grandfather. Well, obviously that didn't survive the Depression.
Right.
But the thing that made them safe wasn't the baking powder, because of course, that expired, the patent or whatever expired on that. Is that they were able to go back and they sold what was affectionately called at the time, and we still use the term today, penny candy.
Yeah.
And what could you afford? If you could afford anything sweet during the Depression, what could you afford?
Right.
Penny candy.
Yeah.
And
The reason that's relevant is the family mythos, so to speak. Like many people in this time, he was scared to death of poverty.
Right.
Even though they weathered the Depression, that's one of the reasons he always tried to work.
The Marx Brothers were the same way. Groucho was still, he would talk about going around in the house and turning off lights, even though he was a multimillionaire. After it, he goes, anybody that went through the Depression.
And that one of the things that Victoria Price talks about in this book is, did Vincent Price's father make it sound worse than it was to instill that message in him, but how much it haunted him.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, so the penny candy and all of that stuff.
Yeah, and then they became one of the biggest candy companies in the country at the time. And their candy company is actually a national landmark, historical landmark in St. Louis currently.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Is it still owned by the Prices?
It is not owned by the Prices. It's actually owned...
This Wonka fella bought him out.
No, it's, if I...
Oompa, loompa,
I didn't write down that
diggity,
note, but I
stab.
think now it's currently being used like as a U-Haul company.
No more candy?
No more candy.
Oh.
Oh my God, does Vincent Price rent the U-Haul to you? I'm Vincent Price.
But Vincent was... But Vincent was actually the youngest of four.
Uh-huh.
And because the candy company was doing so well at the time of his birth, the National Candy Makers Association actually christened him the Candy Kid upon his birth.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Yes, I think actually, and again, another reason that you should check out this book is there's this great insert of photos, and so you get St. Louis businessman Vincent Leonard Price Sr., his father.
Mm-hmm.
You get, though, the Candy Kid. There's a photo of him as the Candy Kid.
Yeah.
Love his hair.
Yeah, I was about to say, well, that's the old royalty hair.
Yeah.
The old. So anyway, this book is great for that. You get to see photos of him. But yeah, so he was. I had to actually figure out the Candy Kid part.
Yeah. He was the Candy Kid. And so pretty much at birth he was already prone to stardom. And I don't have anything other than that. Other than so he went to Yale, I believe.
Yes.
And from Yale he went to London, where he got his first big break in a production of the play Chicago.
Okay.
And from Chicago, he took the leading role of Prince Albert in Victoria Regina.
Yeah.
Not Regina. It's Regina.
Why are you thinking of Regina?
I don't know.
Hold on. When isn't he thinking of Regina?
I need to find
New Regina.
But that production was... I'm going to keep going to get my little...
You get the Regina out of your
Yeah.
mind? I'm afraid that castration took care of that, sir.
The production was so successful that it actually went on to Broadway.
Uh-huh.
And he stayed
Where
with
there's
that...
tons of Reginas.
And he went to stay with that production for 3 years. One of his best quotes is about the reason... he said he came along with the sets.
And that's one of the things that...
What do you mean he came along with the set?
Because when they brought the play from London,
yes,
he came with it, and it became a starring vehicle for another actress.
Uh-huh.
And he was, I think he was like the only actor who came with it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, and the part about that is, one of the things that you'll... And I do, seriously, if you're interested in old Hollywood, because this talks about names and people that... If you love classic Hollywood, Turner Classic Movies in written form here. I'm forgetting the actress's name, but one of the great things that this book does, because she finds her note, and one of the things was he was a notorious pack rat, so she's able to actually find notes that he made to himself. And I bought a book off of her that has his signature in it. So anyway, that being said, the interesting part about all of that is he got offered a movie deal very early on.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually turned down the first movie deal because the actress, when it moved to Broadway, told him, listen, if you get a deal now, you'll have a deal.
Right.
And it will pay really well now. But, and she said it much more eloquently, and he talks about it in detail in letters. But basically saying, or you can do this and be an actor.
Right.
And he took the artistic way and said, no, I want to hone my craft. And that's one of the reasons why he didn't start necessarily as a leading man. He turned down that deal to be an actor.
And after Broadway, what did he do? Do you know what did he do after Broadway?
Oh, shoot.
He worked for Orson Welles.
Oh, yes.
Well, he actually started working for Orson Welles at the same time as he was on Broadway.
Let me-
So was he in the Mercury Theater?
Yeah, he started. He got a job working for Orson Welles in the Mercury Theater.
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah.
I know he did voice work later because he was Simon Templar in The Saint
Yeah, and he also was
on the radio.
and he also was the Shadow, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he did do the Shadow for a while.
Lots of famous people have been the Shadow.
But
Orson Welles was the Shadow.
But I mean, in particular, when you hear what evil lurks in the heart of men, the Shadow knows that Vincent Price's delivery of that line is what you hear in your head. If you know anything about the Shadow,
Is it really?
that's what I hear.
I don't know that I've ever actually heard him do it.
Here's the part about Orson Welles,
Okay.
an excerpt. During the 1937-1938 season, 2 theater troupes were the talk of Broadway. The group theater was performing new work by playwrights such as Clifford Odets, while John Houseman and Orson Welles' Mercury Theater was revitalizing the classics. After the dismal failure of The Lady Has a Heart, which was a play he had been doing, Vincent was thrilled when Welles invited him to join the Mercury Theater Company in early January 1938, and he gladly signed a 5-play contract. Because he had already made a name for himself, he was given a leading actor's salary, which was then $70 a week. It was a significant pay cut from the $350 a week he had received in his last year of Victoria Regina, but the Mercury Theater was the place to be that year. Wells' company had quickly developed a reputation for theatrical innovation and high standards, bringing the classics back to Broadway, yet making them accessible to a contemporary audience. Later on in the book, it talks about their falling out.
Oh, really?
What happened between he and Wells?
Well,
Yeah, because I didn't know there was a falling out.
I'll skip to the blurb about a little bit of the blurb. Initially, Vincent Price and Orson Welles also got along well. They seemed to have much in common. 2 intelligent and talented Midwesterners who had made names for themselves fairly quickly and whose strikingly mellifluous voices were fast becoming as famous as their faces. And of course, their fathers were old friends.
Oh.
But Vincent soon grew disenchanted with Welles's capricious and petulant behavior, both as a director and as
In
an
other
actor.
words,
Orson Welles was petulant?
Wells had the common affliction of so many geniuses.
He was a jackass.
His greatest concern was for himself. In planning his season and casting his plays, he treated the actors like royalty if he needed them, and then forgot about them completely if he did not.
Yep.
Shifting them from one play to another at whim, promising them roles, and then reneging on offers if something or someone better was available. Almost all of the actors in the original company ended up disappointed and soon fell into outright conflict with Wells. For the always disciplined Price, such unprofessional behavior went against everything he believed the theater should be. He later wrote of Wells, "I'm sorry I never got to know Orson Welles better, but he became a legend before his time. He could have been one of the greatest American theatrical and cinema directors, but he had to act. Whether he directed or acted, a play was his show, and finally, for that reason and for that fact alone, he ignored the contracts and gave no one else any credit, and that's why Mercury fell apart."
And we will eventually do a 2-parter of Orson Welles because these boys know that I have a slight obsession. There's a great story I want to tell.
Orson Welles.
But we're doing Vincent's story.
No, I was going to say, but Vincent Price and Orson Welles, I don't care if they were outright in argument. Wouldn't you just want to be a fly on the wall?
Oh, God.
I'd give my right nut.
Yeah.
I mean, literally.
I'm not exaggerating.
No, I mean, because Vincent Price is...
To have been there at that time for 20 minutes.
Yeah. Just, Sure, travel back in time, kill Hitler. But on the way, boys, let's make a stop. Or actually, go back
Let's go back a few years and pick up some penny candy.
Yeah.
And sit and watch a show, boys.
Then watch a show.
And I think that's
I'd
really...
love to watch him and John Houseman blow up.
Yeah, because I think that's really one of the things that, again, Vincent Price, and if you haven't watched our C. Courtney Joyner episode, go watch it.
Please.
Watch that episode, because him talking about Vincent Price, and he does one Vincent Price impression, and it just, I can hear Vincent Price saying it. And anyway, but just to think about what could have been if things would have been different. And imagine if, and by the way, Roger Corman and Vincent Price, I love those movies. They are of their time, and the Poe ones, it hits my Poe loving heart and all that stuff. But can you imagine if Vincent Price and Orson Welles would have made movies together?
Oh, it would have been, yeah.
Which, let's take a break,
Okay.
and then we'll talk about his move to Hollywood.
Cut it out.
Yeah, so right after working with Orson Welles in the Mercury Theater in 1938, Vincent moved to Hollywood.
Hollywood. Da, 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 da.
Does anybody know what he made his debut in the movie Service
Deluxe. Yes.
Do you know anything about that movie? Because I was.
That's actually
The
one.
Service is pretty good.
That's one Vincent Price film that I've never actually get to see, and I should because it's
his first movie.
his first movie. I should see that.
But no, I haven't seen either, and I didn't even get to see what.
What year was that? Was that 1940?
1938.
38.
38?
Yeah, he got a job right in moving into Hollywood. I think he already had.
But yeah, a lot of them did. A lot of famous
Yeah.
Broadway actors. I mean, Orson would be right behind him.
Right. And from there, so from Service Deluxe, he played roles in movies like The Private Life of Elizabeth Essex, The House of Seven Gables. He got a lot of. Laura was a hit, and he got a lot
Laura
of praise.
is the one that people forget about that he's
Yeah.
in.
Laura, well, because once again, he is not the main
No.
No.
in that, but again, he plays. So if you've seen Laura, and if you haven't, it's a classic noir film. It's not a horror film.
No.
It's a classic noir mystery.
We're not even into horror yet.
No,
Other
no.
than Tower of London, there's not
Well,
much
The
to
Invisible
speak
Man
of.
returns.
Invisible. Well, I have that here. Yes, he
But I
played
mean-
the Invisible Man.
But I mean, that was it.
I don't see Vincent. Was he in that picture? What?
But no, you're.
sure that wasn't Claude Rains?
Just
sounded like Vincent for the sequel.
Let's face it, I prefer Kevin Bacon over any of these people.
Anyway, so yeah, no, I mean, most of the movies that he did a lot of biblical films for a while and a lot of royalty films because he had that presence.
Yeah.
But in Laura, he plays one of Laura's. He plays, I guess, the fiance, if I remember correctly.
The suitor.
Yeah, and if
I
you've never
love her.
seen it, Laura is
I haven't seen it in a
dead.
long time. Yeah.
I haven't seen it in a long time.
Laura is dead, but maybe she's not.
What?
And that's,
do.
and it's all about this private detective gets hired to find her,
A private dick.
and he's
As
of course
opposed to
interrogating, and of course Vincent Price plays, and again, long before he's doing horror, it would make sense that he would be involved in her disappearing in some ways, and he's being so
smarmy.
yeah, and just evasive, and you're like, why is he being evasive, or does he really just not know? And again, I bought Laura, to be honest, because I love Vincent Price, and when he's on screen, you're just like, God, you want to hate him, you really do, and I love Vincent Price, and that's why I love him. I think is that even in Laura,
You want to love to hate him.
yeah, I mean, when he's a villain, I mean, and we'll talk about some of the other ones, but there's movies where I'm like, God, it's kind of my same fascination with Christopher Walken. And that would have been my dream, is for them to do a movie together.
Yeah, he also worked on movies like Leave Her to Heaven and Champagne for Caesar. Which
I have seen none of these.
Neither have I. But these were his early works. This is what when he got to Hollywood. These were the movies. He was great in all of these movies, from what I could find.
But you've never seen them.
But what I've read,
I think he phoned it in for the champagne. Caesar had it down.
in what I read on
Did
these
he
movies,
play champagne or Caesar?
No, but what I read in these movies is
Oddly enough,
got
Caesar
praised.
was played by Don DeLuise.
Caesar was played by croutons
Oh!
with some mozzarella in the salad. Keep going,
Why are you pointing down?
because that's where we're going.
Well, we've been there since episode 1. Let's not.
Oh,
I put my heart and soul in
Nelly said we were going down, baby.
Low Street in a Range Rover.
Is that the line?
Street sweeper baby. Not ready to let it go.
I've been
Shimmy, Cocoa Puff.
shimmy now. Anyway,
Light it up and take a puff.
but this is where
Pass it to me now.
But Vincent Price did
Get
find
back
a
to the
niche,
champagne.
and he pretty much stayed in this niche for a long time of playing the villain for either dramatic or comedic effect. Now, where did he get his biggest role? What was his first big hit?
His big hit was in 1953
With
House of Wax.
in 3D, if I'm
In
not mistaken.
3D. It was
Well-
one of the top 10 biggest pictures of that year. Now, the thing that's cool that most people don't know, so I hear this a lot, and the boneheads know what we're talking about. Are going to know what I'm talking about. But I hear, that Hollywood doesn't do anything new anymore. Everything's a remake. I got to let you all know, they've been doing it a long time.
Mystery
Yeah.
at the Wax Museum.
House of Wax was a remake.
Of Mystery at the Wax
Yes.
Museum, which was originally done, I believe, in 1930.
It was a long time ago. Before
And it had been done as a radio play before that.
Yes. And it's... I we met here, so let's name drop a little bit. Sid Haig, a few years ago, we watched him be interviewed, and they asked him his favorite horror film. Do you remember this, Chad, at all? And he said House of Wax was his. And I've seen House of Wax. I own it. It's right there. There's my copy. I enjoyed the movie. The 3D does not.
I would say, and it was a gimmick movie.
It was a gimmick movie.
It totally was a gimmick movie.
It was, oh look, 3D.
Yeah.
And the entire scene, if you have any doubt, it literally is a guy playing with the old ping pong paddle, selling them on the street outside the wax museum, and it stays on that scene for a minute and a half.
At least, just so everybody would enjoy it in the theater. And I bet in 1953, that was amazing.
Right.
What's the problem 60 years later?
Well, an Avatar. Damn, James Cameron.
Damn you, Jimmy John Cameron!
With your delicious sandwiches.
Will you Jimmy Jet my childhood?
One of the things I do want to say, and I know we jumped ahead a little bit, but, and again, he wasn't
Well,
the
that
main.
was his fault.
You're right. House of Wax was the main. Was his big debut as the quote unquote main. But he had been in the Three Musketeers again.
Yes.
Oh, was he Cardinal?
Cardinal Richelieu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you think, obviously, I figure that's a given when you say Three Musketeers. He's Cardinal.
I wouldn't remember that guy's name.
Abbott and
Is he the one that touched me?
No, he's Tim Curry.
Tim Curry wouldn't touch me. He said I wasn't good enough.
Abbott and Costello.
That was for Haley.
He was the voice of the Invisible Man, because
yeah.
he played the Invisible Man in the Invisible Man Returns.
In the Revisible Man?
Because Claude Rains was busy trying to see Humphrey Bogart off into that plane.
But
It's like three people out there going, "Oh my God, did he just make a reference?"
Nobody's doing that joke.
One of the another one that he got a lot of credit for that most modern audiences won't know, and again wasn't the same.
I almost said this.
Gene Tierney, Dragonwyck.
I've never seen
Dragonwyck. So Dragonwyck is a drama, and
it doesn't have dragons.
No.
Does it have Targaryens?
A simple Connecticut farm girl.
I was already
is
bored the
recruited
hell
by
out of
a
me.
distant relative.
Does she get naked?
An aristocratic patroon. I'm bringing patroon back.
Does he stop by and he says, "You can stay at my farm, aristocratic patroon, but you can't touch my Gene Tierney."
To be governess to his young daughter in their Hudson Valley mansion. It was based on a novel, and he got a lot of credit for that. Matter of fact, if you pull up the movie, a lot of times what you'll see, and it's one of his more famous shots, it's him. I can pull it up here on my iPad. The top hat shot.
Oh,
That's a pretty famous shot of Vincent Price. I don't know.
Of course,
it's not going to show up.
YouTube, if you're listening right now, how'd that look?
Yeah,
it's Vincent Price in a top hat.
Yeah, it's Vincent Price.
But it's one of his more famous.
Sir Topham Hat.
Yeah. Somebody's been forced to watch the TV looky box.
Oh my God, Thomas.
The tank engine?
Oh, he's chewing me right to hell. Sir Topham Hat.
But yes, so he did. He also was doing films before that, where he was getting more attention. One where he was where he was the
I love
name.
your sentences.
Where he was the name. Where he was
Movies
the primary.
that made.
They're just not as well known today, but they're still highly ranked if you look them up. The Baron of Arizona, which was a biography picture about a master swindler, and Vincent Price played the master swindler.
It's just an hour and a half going, "It's hot! It's hot!"
James Revis painstakingly spends years.
Only he floats around like the Baron from Dune.
I wish somebody create some kind of invention that blows cold air in this hot environment.
Anyway, the Baron of Arizona.
Everybody in here just blows more hot air.
I need a nice spritz.
The Baron of Arizona, if you like con
How about
movies,
a
it was
spackle?
directed by one Samuel Fuller.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
He never went hungry.
That's terrible. You know who Sam Fuller is? He's a fascinating guy. If you ever watch, we've talked about him a little bit on the show. Read his book. I have his autobiography of The Fourth Face.
If you love,
He wouldn't say direct. He wouldn't say action. He carried a pistol on set and fire the damn thing to get people to act.
if you the slogan for the film again came out in 1950 was "The lustiest adventure a man ever lived." But if you love
B-movie director.
If you love Catch Me If You Can, you should check out Baron of Arizona because it's based on a true story. And basically, this guy forged documents and land grants and it made him briefly the undisputed owner of all of Arizona.
That's a good story.
It's a it's a biography. It
Chad's
actually
checking
happened.
his Gmail.
Well, no, I was looking for Sam Fuller. I was looking something up about him, so bite my ass.
You should. Well, do you want me to pick a spot or just anywhere?
Just go
just
for it.
nibble. Can you shave a part of it for me?
So again, he was doing biographies. He had done religious films. He would continue to do religious films for a long time.
Are we getting to the horror stuff anytime soon?
Well,
So
I'm
because I looked it up why he figures that out. Sam Fuller was in the last movie with Dennis Hopper where he actually did the whole thing with the gun.
Oh, did he? Really?
Yeah.
I've never seen the last movie with Dennis Hopper. I'd like to. Do you have a copy of that?
No.
I'd like to see that.
The other thing that you should check out if you love classic film is he was also doing pirate films and things like that. And one of the ones that's not a great film, but you should check it out just for who all was in it. I refer to Adventures of Captain Fabian. Have you ever heard of the Adventures of Captain Fabian?
No, I thought you were going to give me Ice Pirates.
Oh my God! Is Vincent Price in Ice Pirates?
No.
Then shut up.
But he's in VeggieTales.
Listen to this. Listen to this cast.
That's what I've been told. Those lying Jesus cucumbers wouldn't lie to me, would they?
Errol Flynn.
Lying Jesus cucumbers.
Errol Flynn, Vincent Price, and Agnes Moorehead.
Oh, Agnes Moorehead's over there with the bat.
It's Errol Flynn becomes involved with a servant girl and sees him as a way to gain access to wealth.
Do you think he and Agnes Moorehead ever got it on? Because they were in a couple of things together. I did not know that then.
No, Errol Flynn or Vincent Price?
Vincent Price and Errol Flynn, we know they got it on. What we're talking about is Agnes Moorehead and VP.
Maybe. There's photos in here you need to see. But the thing, what I was going to say about Errol Flynn, we know he got it on with several people, sometimes unwillingly.
Woo! Look up Errol Flynn.
My Wicked Ways is his autobiography. I've got it. I haven't read it yet. It's on my to-read list. Don't spoil it for me. I don't think he comes out well in the end.
Are you getting somewhere? Yeah. We're going to make this go.
I was trying to get to the point that we know Vincent Price.
I don't think you've ever tried to get to a point.
No, we know Vincent Price for horror, but if you watch his films up until realistically House of Wax, he didn't do a lot of horror.
No, absolutely not. Here's the problem.
He did adventure films. He did mysteries and biographies.
He played a lot of heavies, but he didn't. He did House of Wax, and that was a huge hit. And later he would do The Fly in '58, Return of the Fly in '59. Both of those are really good. Actually, The Fly is a classic film, and the remake's a good movie too. And when did he do the Ten Commandments?
Ten Commandments was after House of Wax, actually.
After 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9.
But I think
hold on, let me make sure
I'm ignoring Chad. By the time you get to the Fly sequel, I think you're pretty much cemented himself, or he had cemented himself as the king of horror.
The Ten Commandments he did in 1956, so it was afterwards.
Yeah.
And by the way, the Ten Commandments was a remake as well.
Cecil B. DeMille directed both.
Both, yeah. As I say,
that's what I know. I hear this shit all the time about, and I'm not saying your argument's invalid. I'm just saying you don't have any kind of historical reference when we're talking about it.
Look at all the different variations of Charlie Chaplin, for God's sakes.
Look at all the different... Oh, gee, Christmas. How many virgins? How many virgins does it take to get to the center?
I don't know where you're going with this, but...
How many versions are there of the Three Musketeers?
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
So many.
How many versions of Dracula?
There's a Mila Jovovich one, right? Of Three Musketeers, right?
Oh, God. Have you ever sat through that piece of shit?
According to her, it's a great film, and it just didn't
get the marketing because she's sleeping with the director, Paul Anderson.
Paul W.S. Anderson.
I am so sorry. Paul W.S. Anderson.
Yep. So Vincent Price.
Who did not, to our knowledge, ever sleep with Paul
W.S. Anderson. We can't say the same about the Boneheads.
Are
you getting anywhere? So let's talk about why.
Again, I just want to set up. And again, actually, in The Fly, he's not The Fly.
No.
If we're going to talk about The Fly.
No, he's the good guy.
He's the good.
Is he the brother-in-law?
Or is he the brother-in-law? Yes.
Or he's no. He's the friend who likes the wife.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and it's one of the great scenes ever, and it's one of the greatest stories. If we said earlier, if you get a chance to hear Vincent Price speak, and do the retrospective.
I was about to say if you get it. Oh, you said if you get the chance to. Yes, you said you get the chance to listen to Vincent Price speak.
I'm sorry, Victoria Price.
Because if you get the chance to listen to Vincent Price speak, you will
she talks about it.
Dead no more. You have joined the choir invisible. Dead air. Dead air.
What I was trying to get to.
Did Mississippi kill you?
No, they paid me more. Anyway.
Well, they obviously didn't get you any more money for this show. I don't got anything funny to say. I'm just... Anyway. Back to The Fly. The Fly is about...
It's about... So basically, they invent a transporter. Scientists invent a
scientifically proven. And transport you from point A...
to point B.
To point fly B.
But, unfortunately...
a fly gets in there.
Yep, and when it teleports... Now, again, if you watch the remake, it obviously does it in much different ways. But basically, the guy ends up with a fly's head, and his head is on a fly's body.
Well, the reason why Cronenberg is a smart guy is that he remade it the way you should do a remake. You took a premise, and then you did something different with it. Right? You went down a different way. I mean, yes, does a guy still turn into a fly? But in the remake, it's genetic, and it happens over time, slowly.
Yeah.
So,
but the final scene in the film, famous, if you've ever wondered why this line comes from, of somebody being struck and screaming, "Help me, help me," it's from The Fly. And at the end, they're trying to figure out a way they can transport him back, but they can't find the fly with the human head, and they find it in the end, trapped in a spider web. And the story that Victoria Price tells about that is they focus on it for a second, and then they cut away pretty quickly and they roll credits. The reason for that was Vincent Price and the other actor in the scene couldn't stop laughing. They could stay serious long enough to stare at it, but they did multiple takes and they just could not stop laughing at how ludicrous the effect was at that time. So they had to cut away, and that's how that scene got shot, and that's why it's so quick. And it works, especially in the time period it was made. It worked because you didn't have time to see the flaws of the head being placed and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. It flew by. But the real reason was they couldn't stop laughing.
In 1959, he did 2 movies with a guy named Billy Castle. I don't know if you ever heard of him. His name was William Castle. He doubled it. He did The House on Haunted Hill and The Tingler. Yep. William Castle was known for his showmanship. We've talked about him on the show before.
Just to go see Joe Dante's
matinee. Absolutely. Even though that's not William Castle, that's William Castle.
Right.
And I think that does a fantastic job of explaining, and we've talked about matinee before. It does a fantastic job of explaining that time in America, how gimmicks worked in theaters, how theater was a thing, how Saturday afternoon going to the theater as a child was a thing.
Right.
Which is not so much anymore, right? Yeah, no one drops your kids off, and I have no
That was one of the favorite parts of my childhood, but
it was one of my. It is one of my favorite parts, and we probably came around right at the end of that.
Yes.
So, William Castle, The Tingler, House on Haunted Hill. House on Haunted Hill is about a millionaire invites a bunch of people over and says if they can make it through the night, they'll all inherit. I don't remember how much.
It's ludicrous. Now it's I think 50,000.
50,000 or something. And
I think it's 50,000 split between them. I think eventually.
And but inflation, that's $3 bajillion.
And the house isn't really haunted, and he's really just trying to kill his wife, and then he kills her.
But it's one of my favorite scenes that really did. And another scene where he's completely slimy, and I love him for it, is at the end. The guy, it's a house haunted, all this stuff, and they come in and his wife has fallen into a pit of acid. Mm-hmm. And he's walking away, and they're like, and there's did he kill her? Did he not? But they're not sure. They didn't witness it. And of course, she was trying to kill him too. You learn all of that. But he has this great scene as he's walking away at the end where he's like, "My dear wife, I can't imagine what I'll do without her." And then they say something like, one of them actually loses temper and says something like, "You probably killed her." And I'm like, "Why would I do that? We'll let the courts decide." and you're saying,
we should end meetings with that at work. Yeah. Why would I do that? We'll let the courts decide.
I mean, it's not
nobody asked him a question.
it's not the exact line, but that's the spirit of it. And he's just like, and I watched him kill his wife 2 scenes earlier, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, we probably should give him a chance, guys. But she's also a horrible human being, too. They're both horrible people. And it's a very sympathetic scene in that way.
So by the time we get through House of Wax, The Mad Magician, the 2 Fly films, and now we're doing William Castle,
well,
you are stereotyped as hell.
Well, yeah. But 1959, actually 1957, he did The Story of Mankind where he played the devil, which is, I think I've loaned you that before. It's got the Marx Brothers in it.
I've actually never seen it.
Okay. A little bit about The Story of Mankind. He plays Mr. Scratch, the devil.
You've talked about it on the show.
I've talked about it before on the show.
Oh my God!
But,
here we go again. One more Children of Men.
Yeah, I was going to say. The Story of Mankind was done by an up-and-comer Irwin Allen fellow, and it starred Ronald Coleman, one of his last scenes, Hedy Lamarr, Groucho Marx,
Headley,
Harpo Marx, Chico Marx, Virginia Mayo, Agnes Moorehead, Vincent Price, Peter Lorre,
you've been
Charles
through this
Coburn,
before.
Cesar Romero, John Carradine, who looked like he was 80 then. But, so that was 1957, but you said he was stereotyped. Interestingly enough, you mentioned 1959. He did 2 other films in 1959. One was a circus picture called The Big Circus, which was about a man trying to keep a circus open. And he was not the main star.
That's a little on the nose.
Well, it was, one of the writers for that was, again, Irwin Allen and Charles Bennett. It was directed by Joseph Newman, but the funny part about it was, again, the cast included a lot of people that were huge at the time. Peter Lorre was in it as Skeeter. Because if I'm going to cast Peter Lorre, Skeeter.
Was he the strong man?
We can only... Steve Allen played... Steve Allen. Gilbert Rowland, Vincent Price, Red Buttons. Red Buttons and Vincent Price would work together, and Vincent Price would often be on Red Button show after that. So again,
I've got TV appearances here if we ever get to them.
I know. First off, I thought this was a 2-parter. So
well, we'll see how big it is.
But what I wanted to actually get to is the fact that
I heard tell, not too big.
This was also
phrase grower, but not a shower.
This was also the time, though, if we're going to talk about Vincent Price's life and not just his movies, when we have to start thinking about some of the Red Scare stuff that was going on.
Well, and I want to talk a little bit about that, about when he was playing the Saint, because a little bit about his activism, just to get off of this. Because I actually have a quote here I wanted to... So, at the end, and this is July 30th of 1950, he was playing the Saint. Who's the Saint's name again?
Simon Templar.
Yeah, all right. Denounced racial and religious prejudice as a form of poison at the end of an episode of The Saint, which aired on NBC Radio on July 30th, 1950, claiming that Americans must actively fight against it because racial and religious prejudice within the United States fuels support for the nation's enemies. He was later appointed to the Indian Arts and Creative Board under the Dwight D. Eisenhower administration. He called the appointment kind of a surprise since I'm a Democrat. He was supportive of his daughter when she came out as a lesbian, and he was critical of Anita Bryant's campaign in the 1970s. He was an honorary member of PFLAG and amongst the first celebrities to appear in public service announcements discussing AIDS. His daughter has said that she is as close to certain as I can be that my dad had physically intimate... I skipped something here, sorry.
Dead air. Hello, my baby. Hello, my darling. Hello,
so
my
I pulled a James. I apologize.
But
he was an activist from the jump.
Well, and the thing about it is he never really left Broadway. I mean, he was doing... We talk about the movies because we can pull up IMDb, but he was in shows. Matter of fact, actually, and speaking of religious films, he didn't only do Christian films. He was in The Story of Joseph Smith. Very early on. He played, the name of that film is, why am I forgetting the name of the film?
Salt Lake Sucker. Keep going.
Oh my God, I would actually watch Salt Lake Sucker right now. Brigham Young. Why can't I remember Brigham Young? I should, BYU.
He has a university.
You usually like him slightly older.
He played Joseph Smith in Brigham Young.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he did a lot of religious films because he did have that regal royal presence. At the same time being able to be intimidating. But again, that did lead him to... So if you're familiar with The Blacklist, and again, Victoria Price's book, if you're interested in the history of Hollywood...
James Spader's great in it.
Anyway...
I want popcorn. Keep going. I don't even like popcorn. That's where this is going.
Anyway, so he was threatened with the Blacklist, He did not
Name names.
name names. And he ended up effectively being kind of on the gray list, is the term that they use. That it did cost him.
Really quick, a history of that was the Red Scare. There was a guy named Joseph McCarthy, said
Mm-hmm.
he had a bunch of names, Hollywood elite people. A lot of people named names because the last thing you wanted to be called was a communist at that time. There was a
Right.
Red Scare going on, communism's going to take over, yada, yada, yada. And a lot of actors, directors, writers, there's a great movie about, Chad.
Edward Murrow.
No, not Edward R. Murrow, but
It's called Good Night, Good Luck.
that is a good movie. You should check out Good Night and Good Luck. I was actually going to talk about Bryan Cranston's
Trumbo.
Trumbo. Dalton
Yep.
Trumbo was a famous screenwriter, maybe one of the most famous screenwriters, or maybe one of the best screenwriters of all time. Check it out. He got blacklisted, had to write under other pseudonyms for years. And real quick, we will take a break.